You're listening to How to Drink Less, and I'm your host, Adriana Cloud. Whether your goal is to cut back, take a break, or say goodbye to alcohol for good, this podcast will help you stop drinking on autopilot, learn how to manage cravings, and feel fully in control around alcohol. It's easier than you think. Listen on to find out how. Hi everyone, welcome back. Today I want to talk about something that trips up so many people when they're trying to change their drinking habits, and that's the idea that we shouldn't want alcohol anymore. We tell ourselves that if we truly wanted to change, then we would no longer crave it. We think that desire is a sign of failure or weakness, and when that desire doesn't go away and we still have cravings, we start to wonder, what's wrong with me? And today, I want to challenge that thinking. I want to help you see that it's actually okay to still want alcohol, and that wanting it doesn't mean you're broken, and it doesn't mean you're doomed to keep drinking. And crucially, I want to remind you that even though some part of you might still want to drink, you can nevertheless choose not to drink. Now, for those of us who have a problematic relationship with alcohol, by the time we decide we want to drink less or to quit entirely, we've probably had quite a few experiences that we're not proud of. I speak for myself here for sure. We have probably said hurtful things to people we love. We have probably broken promises and bailed on plans. And some of us may have even done even worse things under the influence. And so we try to remind ourselves that alcohol is bad. And we have the evidence. Alcohol has made us do all those terrible things, and it impacts our health, it messes up our sleep, it's damaging to our relationships, our finances, our productivity. So, given everything that it's cost us, we shouldn't still want to drink, right? But then a craving comes up, and so we think, clearly there must be something wrong with me if I still want to drink. Clearly I'm failing. I'm hopeless, and I'll never be able to change. And off we go, judging and shaming ourselves for still wanting to drink. But here's what I want you to hear. Your desire for alcohol is not a moral failing. It's just a habit. It's just the program that you've taught your brain to run. That's it. Literally, you have trained your brain through repetition to expect alcohol in certain circumstances or at certain times of the day. After a stressful day at work, at 6 p.m., while you're cooking dinner, when you're celebrating something, when you're sad or when you're bored. Every time you drank in those situations, you reinforce that reward loop in your brain. And everything done with repetition becomes a habit, which means that at some point it becomes automated. And that includes the desire for alcohol. Let me say this again. Even the desire for alcohol becomes automated in your brain. This is why, even when you may have consciously decided that you want to cut back or take a break from drinking, your unconscious mind is running the old program, which includes craving a drink at 6 p.m., or when you meet your friends at the bar for happy hour, or when you're feeling bored. That doesn't make you broken. It just makes you human. It just means that your brain is a very good student doing exactly what it has evolved to do. That is, learning from repeated behaviors. So that's the first thing I want you to do when you notice that you still want to drink, to normalize that desire. Literally say to yourself, of course I still want the drink. It makes so much sense that I do. Think of how many times you've repeated certain drinking patterns. I don't know about you, but I was a daily drinker for over a decade. So just doing the conservative math here, that's 365 days a year for 10 years. And again, I'm rounding down. So that's 3,650 times that I've repeated certain patterns. So once I started trying to break these patterns, it would have been truly shocking if I didn't still have cravings. Now, the good news is that you can break habits much faster than the time it took to build them. So please don't go thinking that it'll take you years or decades to change your relationship with alcohol if that's how long you've been drinking. No, there are faster ways to break a habit and build new habits. But still, I think it's helpful to remind yourself that you've spent years, if not decades, training your brain to do one thing. So it makes perfect sense that when you switch tracks, your brain will still occasionally start to go down the old track. Again, it's not you being broken, that's you having a human brain that's working correctly. It might help to see this more clearly if we take it out of the context of drinking for a moment and use another example. Imagine there's construction in your neighborhood and they've blocked off the usual road you take to drive to the grocery store. You know that you're supposed to take the detour, but maybe you get in the car one morning and you're thinking about the phone call you just had with your mother, and before you realize it, you're driving down the old route. Do you beat yourself up? Probably not. Probably you'll just turn around and reroute. You understand that your brain defaulted to the most familiar course of action, and it doesn't mean you're stupid or incapable of following directions. It just means you're human. Or think of how maybe you're talking on the phone as you're tidying up the kitchen, and suddenly you realize that you've put the cereal box in the fridge. Of course, you know that's not where the cereal goes, but your brain was multitasking, and so it did something on autopilot. And you might laugh at yourself, but you're probably not going to spiral into self judgment about it. And that's the attitude I want you to adopt in those moments when you still want to drink, even though you've made a decision not to drink. And here's another shift I want to offer you. Just because you want something doesn't mean you have to have it. It's a revolutionary idea, I know, but hear me out. We have all kinds of wishes and desires every day that we don't act on. Maybe you want to take a nap in the middle of the workday. When your kids are fighting and screaming, maybe you imagine just getting in the car and driving away. Maybe you have the urge to tell your coworker what you really think of her communication skills. But you don't act on those things. Or maybe sometimes you don't act on those things. You notice them and you talk yourself through why it would be a bad idea to do what your brain is suggesting you do. And you do something else instead. Like you get up from your desk and stretch and maybe get a cup of coffee so you feel a bit more energized. You take a few deep breaths and you try to talk your kids into playing nice. You make some polite suggestions to your coworker about how she could be clearer in her emails next time. I used to have this one sentence written on a post-it and taped on my desk back when I was working on my own drinking, and now I tell it to my clients all the time, and it's this: not everything is a call to action. There's so many things we don't have control over, many circumstances outside of us, what other people will say or think or do, and even our own thoughts. We don't have control over them. Thoughts will pop into our heads for no reason whatsoever. But not everything is a call to action. No matter what the trigger is, acting on the trigger is optional. Sounds so obvious, doesn't it? But we tend to forget. So my invitation to you is to start noticing how many desires you have every day that you don't act on. Not so that you get depressed about how your wishes are going unfulfilled, but just to reinforce the idea that a desire is just a thought. And yet we have this ridiculous idea that when we have the desire for a drink, that's somehow special and different from any other desire, that somehow it's more meaningful or more urgent and we have to obey it. But you don't have to obey it. The desire for alcohol is not different from any other desire. You had the thought that a glass of rosé would make this lovely warm evening even more pleasant. But the rosé doesn't pour itself into your glass. You're still the one making the choice. So don't abdicate your power. You can certainly acknowledge that a desire is there. You can remind yourself it's just a conditioned response and it doesn't mean anything. And you can remind yourself that you're still the one in charge and you get to choose whether to act on that desire or not. It's like when your kid wants cake for dinner. You can listen to them tell you how much they want cake. You can be sympathetic and compassionate, but you don't have to hand over the cake. You are the adult in the room, and you know that cake for dinner is not the best idea. You don't automatically give in just because your 4-year-old made a demand, even if they throw a tantrum. You can do the exact same thing when you find yourself craving a stiff drink at the end of a stressful day when nothing went to plan. I had a client recently who received some bad news about a medical diagnosis, and her first thought was that she should stop at the liquor store on the way home and get some wine. She managed to talk herself out of it in the end, but she felt so ashamed that her brain immediately offered her the thought that wine would make it easier to process this news. But when we consider for how many years she has turned to alcohol to escape unwanted emotions and numb things like fear and anxiety and grief, of course that's what her brain defaulted to. In fact, it would have been strange if it didn't do that. But because she was busy beating herself up for even considering stopping at the liquor store, she completely dismissed the fact that she was able to talk back to her craving and remind herself that getting drunk was really not what she wanted to do in this situation. That was the big win right there, that she didn't actually give in to the craving. That was the habit change happening in real time. Because it doesn't matter if the urge comes up. What matters is how you respond to the urge. And here's a question I want to offer you for those moments when you notice that you want a drink. Ask yourself, what else do I want? When we want something, it narrows our attention. It's like we're zooming in and all we can focus on is the thing we want, whether it's a gin and tonic or a cookie, or to punch your laptop because you're 20 minutes into the team meeting and Brad has not stopped talking. In those moments, it's helpful to zoom out and expand your awareness. The question, what else do I want, invites you to look at the bigger picture beyond what would give you immediate gratification. It allows you to remember why you're trying to change your relationship with alcohol in the first place. Because you want to feel in control. You want to not wake up buzzing with anxiety at 3 a.m. You want more mornings without hangovers. You want to keep the promises you make to your kids about taking them to the park tomorrow. You want to be able to get through a hard day without numbing yourself with wine. You want to build genuine connection with your partner that doesn't require both of you to be tipsy to be able to open up and talk about the things that really matter. You want to trust yourself to make choices that feel good, not just for the next 20 minutes, but tomorrow and the day after. I'm spitballing here just to give you some ideas to explore. You get to answer this question for yourself, but the point is to expand your field of vision and remember that you have other desires as well. And from that broader perspective, it's easier to make a choice that you feel good about. Because the point is not to eliminate cravings completely and never again desire alcohol. I mean, you might get there eventually, but you might not. And I want you to normalize that. Either way, it's okay, and nothing has gone wrong. It's okay to still want alcohol. And rather than trying to get rid of all traces of desire by shaming yourself for wanting a toxic substance that's bad for you, focus your energy on how you respond to that desire. That's where your power lies, and that's where real and sustainable habit change happens. That's what I'll leave you with today. And if this resonates with you and you know that you want a different relationship with alcohol, but you're not sure where to start, I can help. You don't have to figure this out all on your own. This is exactly the work I do with my coaching clients, and I would love to chat and see if we are a good fit. You can book a free consultation through the link in the show notes, and we can talk about what's keeping you stuck and how to move forward. That's it, my friends. Take good care, and I'll talk to you next week. If you're looking for practical advice for how to say no to alcohol and say yes to yourself, you will want to get on my email list. Sign up to receive my free guide with 7 steps to kickstart your sobriety. The link is in the show notes, so go and grab it now, and I'll see you soon in your inbox.